What's up guys, Jeff from Sorta Healthy here. Today we're talking about the thing that could very well be the deciding factor on how successful you are as a trainer. And that thing is client retention. How well will you be able to retain the clients that you sign on? If your client retention isn't good, you won't survive in the field. This probably comes as no surprise to many of you. That being said though, I don't see that many people focusing on ways to improve their retention. We seem very focused on acquiring new leads, which isn't a bad thing, but once we sign that lead on, many of us just kind of hope that they stay training with us. Relying on hope is never a good strategy. We here at Sorta Healthy believe in grabbing life by the balls and dealing with something like retention in a calculated way. Today we'll be covering what kind of client retention you should aim for, and then we'll be going over the strategies that you should be using to maximize retention going forward. Before we get into all the fun stuff, all I ask is that you consider supporting the channel by liking this video and subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already. This helps out the channel a lot, and that allows me to keep making free content for you guys. I really appreciate the support, everyone. We hit 10,000 subscribers a month or two ago, and yeah, I'm just really thankful for all of you. Thanks again for the support, guys. So let's start out by talking about what client retention is defined as, and also what kind of client retention numbers you should strive for. Client retention can be defined in a few different ways. Most industries define it as repeat buying, or when a customer buys your product or service multiple times, well, you've retained that client. I think in personal training, we do have to get a little bit more specific on our definition of retention though. If I sell a client one or two sessions, then a year later they come back and buy one or two more, have I really retained that client? According to some definitions I have, but according to my bank account, this is a poor way to measure client retention, for us at least. Selling one or two, maybe even a few more sessions than that, should usually only be a backup option, not the main objective. Your mission should be to keep clients for long periods of time. It's way easier to retain an existing client than it is to find and sign a new one on. I recommend a tiered session package option list like this. Almost all clients should buy this one because this is a better deal for them. Goals do take a little while to achieve after all, and of course it does guarantee longer term income for you. These options are for people who are unsure of what they want, and they also exist here to make this option look better. So if we're not going to count the client who bought one or two sessions from us, took a year off, and then came back and bought one or two more as a retained client, then what is a retained client? I think for a client to be retained, you should be training them at least once a week for 6 months. If a client is away for a week here and there due to something like work, well, that shouldn't count against your retention though. Anyways, this 6-month window gives you reliable income for the foreseeable future. It would also mean that you would be selling at least 2 of these packages to a client as well. Even though this definition of client retention isn't perfect, I think it's the best that we can do. We should aim to retain as many clients as possible for at least 6 months. So what should our client retention goal be? In other words, what would be a good client retention percentage? Or what percentage of my clients should I be keeping for at least 6 months? Well, I think it's time that we look at a handy dandy chart to explore that. Keep in mind the estimates on this upcoming chart are made by myself and a small group of trainers who've been in the field for a good while. So that does mean this chart is primarily based on experience and opinion. Anyways, you can see that this chart is split into 2 categories: gym training and private training. Private training could be a private studio that's purely focused on personal training where you're the employee. It could be where you're an independent contractor renting space, but you still have a private location to train people. It could also be you traveling to people's homes and training them there. A few more examples exist in this category, but I think you guys all get what I'm referring to here. The other category is gym training, and this would refer to trainers working in a more typical gym setting. It is very, very likely that you will have a higher retention rate working as a trainer in a private location compared to a trainer working in a more traditional gym. That's why each category is 15% higher for private training. There are a few reasons for this. In a private training location, clients are often only reaching out to you in the first place because they want training. Sure, some clients who sign up for a gym membership also want to buy personal training, but it's usually not the only thing that they're interested in. Again, with private studio clients, this is less often the case. Oftentimes, private studio clients know they want training, and that's the only reason they're going there. This means you typically get more people who are serious about personal training in smaller, more private locations. The second reason your retention will likely be higher in a studio setting is because on average, the quality of your training will be better in a private location. You should be able to deliver a superior experience in a private studio setting. This is because you and your client don't have to worry about sharing equipment, overall there will be less distraction, and as the name would imply, there is more privacy in these locations. There are other reasons as to why your retention rate might be higher in a private location too, but I do think that these are the main ones. Now this isn't all bad for gym trainers though. Yes, on average your prospects will be less serious about training, but if you're working in a gym, you potentially have access to more prospects in general. There are more people in a gym, and that does mean more potential leads. Plain and simple. So if you're not scared to fail a bit more, a gym can still work out well. Anyways, back to this chart. I want all of you guys to be here because this is how you make a decent living as a trainer. So what strategies should we employ to get here? Well, the first thing that we should do very early on is set realistic goals with our prospect or client. If we set realistic goals right in the beginning, then of course we have a much higher likelihood of reaching those goals and satisfying our clients. This seems obvious, but I have seen many trainers make promises to clients that are in no way, shape, or form possible. There is no safe way that a trainer should be able to help a client lose 20 pounds in 30 days. You and I know this, but many average people have no idea. Of course, there are many other BS claims that some trainers will make to prospects that may help initially with the sale, but end up backfiring in the long run. Your best bet is always to be as honest as possible in that initial goal-setting meeting with your prospect. Let them know that we'll be aiming for 1 to 2 pounds of weight loss a week. Also say to them, we're looking for that much because it's doable without lowering your calories too much and starving you. If they want to get stronger, do the same thing. Give them realistic goals to achieve right in the beginning. Helping them establish realistic goals will make you look like you know what you're talking about. It will make you look more professional, and like we said, it will help your chances of retaining your client as well. So make sure to stay on top of that. Our next strategy for increasing your retention is building relationships. This one seems somewhat obvious too, but just like our first strategy, many trainers get this wrong. One of your main objectives when working with a new client should simply be just to get to know them. After a few sessions, you should be able to answer a whole bunch of different questions about your client. It sounds a little bit weird, but I make it a personal mission to find out what my client's home or family life is like. I want to know what their work environment is like. I want to know what kind of stress they're under on a daily basis. The list goes on and on here. The main way in which I uncover all this information about my client is by asking them good questions throughout their sessions. You'll want to spend a good amount of time asking your client questions about pretty much anything. Many of these questions should be focused around their goals, but some certainly don't have to be. You should also spend far more time listening to your client rather than talking about yourself or what you have going on. For those interested, I break all this stuff down in much more detail in this video that focuses exclusively on trainer communication. Examples of other things that you could do to build a connection with your client include things like sending a text saying, "Hey blank, I know you weren't feeling well last week. How are you feeling today?" Simply checking in on your client if you haven't heard from them in a few days is almost never a bad move. You could also give your client a small $10 gift card to the local protein smoothie shop, literally for just being a good client. Little gestures do go a long way here, even though helping your client achieve their goals is still the most important thing. That being said, don't underestimate how powerful building relationships can be when it comes to client retention. My next strategy for maximizing client retention is to be as consistent in your coaching and demeanor as possible. We want our clients to be consistent in everything they're doing to achieve their goals. Consistency is required when someone is trying to improve their health or physique. Well, this is one of those times when we, the experts, need to do the same thing. We need to show up every day with a super positive attitude. We always need to be super friendly and understanding, and we always need to have a plan for getting our clients to that desired outcome. We need to embody all of this and more every time we step into that facility. Nobody is perfect, especially us trainers, but we are supposed to be role models for those who are trying to lead a healthier life. If we can't be consistent in our coaching or practice what we preach, then we lose authority and some of our ability to retain our clients at the same time. So show up every day as a positive influence who has a plan. If you can do that while practicing what you preach, your retention will absolutely be better. My next strategy is to be flexible in your approach. This applies to coaching, but also pretty much anything to do with personal training. Being flexible in your approach can be tough to balance with being consistent, our last strategy, but you will have to pull this off to retain many clients. I find myself having to be extra flexible in my approach when dealing with certain clients who are focused on weight loss, and also in working with clients who have orthopedic issues. With weight loss clients, the best thing to get them to do early on is to food journal. journal. We need to get our weight loss clients into a caloric deficit, and the only reasonable way for us to do that is to figure out what they're eating and in what quantities. If we can get a client to food journal using something like MyFitnessPal, even if it's just for a few weeks, this becomes a much easier process. The problem is that some clients just won't do it. They want to lose weight, many will even acknowledge that they should food journal, but they still don't do it. Well, you still need to get that client to lose weight, right? So what do? Well, you have to be flexible in your approach and try some other strategies. Maybe you'll go through an average day of eating with that client and switch some of their food choices around for better options. Maybe you'll get them to cut out a few things altogether, like soda for instance. Maybe you'll try and get them to drink more water at every meal to lower their appetite. The options here are limitless. You need to be quick though and implement a few things right away if you find yourself in a spot like this. Your job literally does depend on it. The same thing happens often with clients who have orthopedic issues. Your typical workout strategies probably won't work as well for these clients. That being said, if you can safely change up the plan to help your client work around their limitations and achieve their goals, you very well could have that client for life. These clients will not only trust your knowledge and skills, but they will also feel indebted to you. In our line of work, that's certainly not a bad thing. My last strategy for retaining your clients is to offer supreme customer service in everything you do. Ultimately, you need to over-deliver. You need to be organized and professional every day. You need to be as responsive as possible if your clients have questions for you. You always need to be caring and understanding. And maybe the most important of all, you have to help your client achieve the goal that they set out to accomplish in the first place. Most trainers under-deliver on at least a handful of the things that we went over today. So if you can consistently over-deliver, you will be successful. So be too nice and friendly with your clients. Try to be too professional and organized, almost to the point where it's weird. You also need to be consistent yet flexible in your approach. Over-delivering on anything we talked about today won't hurt you. But if you under-deliver in any of these areas, it will. And your retention will suffer because of it. And that's all that we have for today, everyone. Do any of you have any good client retention strategies that I didn't mention? If you do, then make sure to let me know down below. Do you have any questions on anything that we went over today? Again, if you do, make sure to let me know down below in the comments. And if you haven't done so already, please consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because both of those things do help the channel to grow, which does allow me to make more free content for all of you. Thanks for watching, everyone, and until next time, stay sorta healthy.